Hey guys, Chapter 4, Section 2 video here for you, 4.2. How can you use addition or subtraction to solve an inequality? So we're going to be solving some less than greater than problems, but we're going to apply a lot of our algebra skills that we already have. So this probably will be easy breezy if you've done some of the prior videos. So let's try some problems. We're going to do example 1 here. We're going to solve and graph the solution. Here is our problem. X minus 5 is less than negative 3. X minus 5 is less than negative 3. Here's our strategy. We put a line down the middle as if it was just a regular equal sign problem. We want X to be all by itself, isolated. So what do we need to move? The minus 5. We're going to add the 5 to the other side to move it over. No problem. So if we add the 5, technically we're using what's called the addition property of inequality. I don't expect you to have to memorize those words, but I want you to be familiar with them. We're adding 5, so it's addition. It's a property, which means it's a rule. And we're using an inequality, so it's the addition property of inequality. Now, when we add that 5 over and get rid of it, we get the x all by itself. And I was going to put a little note here. I wanted to re-verify that you understand that inequalities are when you have any less than greater than symbols. If this had just been a regular equal sign problem, then I would have said the addition property of equality instead of inequality. So that's the main difference there, is if it was an equal sign, we'd say the addition property of equality instead of inequality. All right, back to our problem. So x is by itself. Negative 3 plus 5 is 2. So we get a solution of x is less than 2. But we are not done. We need to graph our solution on a number line. So we're going to take x is less than 2, and we're going to take our ruler, and we're going to draw a nice number line. I always put 0 in the middle, and then I do my numbers to the left and right. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Notice my number line has arrows. Don't forget your arrows. And it's nice and neat. Now x is less than 2, so we're going to circle 2, and we're going to test our points. Test something on the left and something on the right. I'm picking 5 and negative 3. But pick anything you want on both sides. Then see if they're true. Is 5 less than 2? Is negative 3 less than 2? Well, 5 is definitely not less than 2, but negative 3 is. So the left side passes. So you take your pencil or a colored pencil and you start shading it in darkly to the left with a big arrow. Then we test the point itself. Is 2 less than 2? Nah, 2 is not less than 2. 2 is equal to 2. No equal sign, then we're going to leave this empty and we're not going to fill it in. Our graph is complete. Empty hole on this one. And then that's it. We've got our final answer. So why don't you try one? I know I only showed you one example, but let's see if you can do this. I'm going to give you an ABC. For each of them, you're going to solve and graph. So let's try this one first. Y minus 6 is greater than negative 7. Go ahead and hit the pause button on your device and solve and graph this. Good luck. Go. Okay, you ready to check your answer? Did you solve and graph? Let's see. We're going to put a line down the middle. We're going to get y all by itself, which means adding the 6 over. And you're going to get the answer y is greater than negative 1. Means you have an empty hole on the number line and shaded to the right. Let's try another one. B minus 3.8 is less than or equal to 1.7. Again, pause the video and go ahead and solve. Okay, I know there's decimals in this one, but you can use a calculator. All you got to do is add the 3.8 over. So you're going to get B is less than or equal to 5.5. Now, this one has a solid point on the number line. It's not an empty hole. And it's right between 5 and 6 at 5.5, shaded to the left. Okay, last one. I'm going to throw some fractions at you. Negative 1/2 is greater than z minus 1/4. There's a tricky one. Hit the pause button, see if you can figure it out. All right, let's see how you did with the fractions. So on this one, you have to add the 1/4 over. This is a pretty tricky problem because we have to put the line down the middle and we have to add 1/4 over. So if you're feeling a little shaky with your fractions, I could see where you might struggle on this one. That gets z all by itself, And negative a half plus a fourth is negative 1/4. That's why on our number line we've circled negative a fourth. Now if you want to make that a decimal, 1 divided by 4 is 0.25. So you can call it negative 0.25 if that's something more comfortable for you. But make sure you're shaded to the left. Okay, example 2, let's try the next one. Solve and graph the solution. So here is our problem. 13 is less than or equal to x plus 14. Now what do we want to do? We want to get x all by itself. So we're going to take the 14 away. Subtracting it away is what we call the subtraction property of inequality. So if you want to get technical, that's what we're doing. Now when you get rid of the 14, 13 take away 14 is negative 1. So our solution is negative 1 is less than or equal to x. So we're going to take that and we're going to put it on our number line. We're going to graph it. So grab a ruler, set up a nice, neat graph again with 0 in the middle and your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and your negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we are going to circle negative 1. That's our focus. Now we're going to test points on both sides. So I'm choosing 5 and negative 4. That's what I'm going to test. And I'm going to put it where the x is. So you see how my problem is negative 1 is less than or equal to x. Now it's negative 1 is less than or equal to negative 4. Negative 1 is less than or equal to 5. Which of those is true? Well, negative 1 is less than 5. So that one's true, but it's not less than negative 4. So we are shading on the right-hand side. We're going to take our pencil, shade it in dark. Let's test the point. Is negative 1 less than or equal to negative 1? It's not less than, but it is equal, and there is an equal sign. So, yes, we're going to fill it in, make it a dark, solid point. And now we have our graph, shaded to the right. So our last problem that we're going to do in this video is going to involve talking a little bit about becoming an astronaut. So name this astronaut. Do you know who this is? It's Neil Armstrong, first man, first American to walk on the moon. All right, so to become an astronaut, you don't get to go straight to NASA. There's a little bit of a process to it. Obviously, it takes a lot of training before you can fly to outer space, and it also takes a lot of education. One of the things astronauts have to do is they have to be good at flying. So before you can fly a rocket to the moon, you got to be able to fly a jet first, or a plane. So how do you become an astronaut pilot? Are you curious? Well, first you got to go to college and get your bachelor's degree. That's your 4-year degree, and you can do that in a lot of different subjects. It could be engineering, you could do sciences, you could do math, my favorite subject. You get to kind of vary it up. There's not like one degree you have to choose. But then after that, you have to become a pilot and fly a jet. And you got to log in at least 1,000 hours or more of practice flying time before you're flying to outer space. You also have to pass a space physical exam. Because to go to outer space, you got to be in pretty good physical shape. There's a few interesting requirements, like your height is important, because if you're super tall, it's kind of a problem because it's hard to fit you inside those tiny little rocket ships. Your eyesight's important. If you have poor eyesight, they usually don't choose you to be a pilot. They want you to have that 20/20 vision. Things like your blood pressure are important. You don't want to have too high or too low of blood pressure. You want to have that in control. So our last problem today is all about becoming an astronaut. Now here is our story. A person can be no taller than 6.25 feet to become an astronaut pilot for NASA. Your friend is 5 feet 9 inches. Write and solve an inequality that represents how much your friend can grow and still meet the requirements. So you've got a friend who wants to be an astronaut, who is 5 feet 9 inches tall, but the limit is 6.25 feet. So your friend can grow, but not too much. We're going to write and solve this with a little bit of algebra. So let's write down the facts of the story. Here are the facts. The current height of your friend is 5 feet 9 inches. That's how tall he or she is right now. You can be no taller than, which no taller than sounds like no less than, so less than or equal, 6.25 feet. Okay, well, what's our variable going to be? Well, we're supposed to write and solve an inequality that represents how much your friend can grow. So for that variable, I'm kind of wondering, before we do the variable part, if we have a little bit of conflict here. We have 5 feet 9 inches and 6.25 feet. Those are kind of hard to relate. So 5 feet 9 inches, I'm going to change to a decimal. There's 12 inches in a foot. So 9 out of 12, 9 divided by 12 makes it 5.75 feet. I'm going to use that as my number for my fact. Then my variable is going to be h. I'm going to let h be the possible height my friend can grow. You could use x if you'd rather use x, but I just thought h for height made a lot of sense. So let h be the possible height your friend can grow. Okay, so we got our facts, we got our variable. Now we're going to write the equation. So here is our equation. Your friend is 5.75 feet plus however much he grows. It has to be less than or equal to 6.25 if he wants to become an astronaut. So 5.75 plus h, the mystery growth that we don't know how much he's going to grow, has to be less than or equal to 6.25. Oh, sweet. Put a line down the middle. We can solve this thing. We're going to take the 5.75 away. You can either use a calculator or do that in your head, and you get 0.5. So height is less than or equal to 0.5. What does that mean? Well, your friend cannot grow more than 0.5 feet. 0.5 feet, half a foot is 6 inches to become a NASA pilot. So your friend cannot grow any more than 6 inches to become a pilot. That's what that means. Alright guys, so we're going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching. I hope you followed along in those examples pretty well. You kind of are practicing putting the line down the middle, solving for your variable, and then graphing it on a number line. Thanks for watching, guys. Bye.